Hello and welcome back to the Go-Karts and Good Times YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be working on the motorcycle. Like I said in the last video, besides the exhaust, the only things keeping me from finishing the bike are miscellaneous odds and ends. Before I do any of this, however, I'm going to be washing the bike. With the carburetors removed, I'll need to cover these rags and gloves and stuff them down the ports to protect the engine. Now I'm ready to go. Complete, the bike can finally be blown off and wiped down. While not great, this is still an improvement for being plastered in dust and grime. I think the first real step of the process is going to be tearing the bike down, including the leaky radiator, the bad taillight, and any parts that stand in the way of rust. All that's left is to get to work, starting at the back and moving towards the front, removing anything that might be in my way. Some will be upset to hear that I'm cutting up the rear fender, but it was already modified to add this junk rear light. The taillight wiring was also modified, necessitating the removal of extra wires and repairing the originals. Unfortunately, my phone died during filming, but it's done. I do regret using electrical tape, but I still trust it more than some guys' crimp connectors, and it's finally done. Next is working on the rear end and getting the fender removed. With this removed, now you can see why I want to modify it. With holes drilled for this second light and for the wires that were routed to it, I want to cut right under the license plate prop to make it look sleeker and to remove the modified parts. With the fender roughly marked, I'll make a wide cut and then come back for refinement. That this isn't perfect. It wasn't ever going to be perfect, and when I started it wasn't perfect. I think this came out amazing. It looks even better when it's installed on the bike. Though these ones are perfectly functional, I would like to get a set of sleeker aftermarket turn signals. I managed to find an inexpensive pair that have shorter stocks and have a more sleek look that I prefer to these. Until I finish the frame rust repair, these parts will be set to the side. I'm going to move on to the leaky radiator up front. Now I can finally make the comparison between the radiator the bike came with and the junkyard one I painted, along with the parts that came with them. Unlike with the carburetors, I do trust what came off the bike more than what I got from the junkyard. I'll be most likely swapping all of the parts from the bike onto the junkyard radiator. I finally have a clean, functional, and complete radiator. Checking one more thing off of the list. While the rust isn't bad, it's definitely noticeable, especially in random places like underneath the battery tray here, which necessitates the removal of all these goodies in the middle of the frame. While there is chipping paint here and there and traces of surface rust in many places, keep in mind this bike is over 30 years old and trying to fix some of these parts would be a can of worms. In my mind, they would result in me replacing almost all of them. All that's left to do is get this stuff taken out and see what I'm working with. Ratchet strap, I was finally able to get this piece removed from the bike. Finally, I'm ready to remove this stupid breather canister. During the process, I was very seriously considering removing the factory plastic, making my own battery tray, relocating the coolant reservoir, and deleting this breather box to simplify the middle of the bike. I I've decided against this, however, for now, because I'm just trying to get the bike running and there's no real gain for modifying these parts. To start the rust removal process, I will hunt around for any rusty areas or areas with loose paint. Then I will hit this with rust converter, which will be top coated with black paint. While it may not be perfect and you will see the transition from my paint to the factory paint, it will remove the rust and it will improve the longevity of these parts. While I don't have a wide enough range of sizes to replace every single clip on the bike, I can at least replace most of them. I'm done, besides the chain guard and various other screws, nuts, and bolts that I plan to paint and then put right back on. The worst bolts on the bike are easily the ones associated with the cooling system, so I think I'll be taking these side covers off to take a deeper look. Now is to coat all the rust or bare metal with rust fix, which will then be top coated with black. Hardware like this I'm going to clean up on the wire wheel and then do the same. Notice that I was pretty haphazard with my application of the paint, but this stuff does dry clear when it's not on rust, so I'm not really worried about what it gets on. After a trip to the wire wheel, these parts are finally ready for paint. Well, I'm still not really concerned about masking because after all, most of this is black and most of this is going to be underneath bodywork. It's time to put on the color. Now the frame is finally one color and rust free, and while there's a decent amount of overspray and many parts don't look amazing, this is all going to be underneath body panels anyway, and this was to fight rust, not make it look better. With these pieces painted, I can now think about reassembling the bike. With the shock removed, I can also coat the spring and rust converter. The other thing about the shock being removed is it gives me much more clear access to the exhaust port. This also most likely means that I'm going to make the exhaust while the bike is apart, meaning that the exhaust video and the miscellaneous video will be intertwined with each other and both take a while to finish because they're dependent on each other. Meantime, while I'm waiting for things, I can reinstall the radiator, random nuts, bolts, and brackets that I removed, and most of the electrical components. Many of you know I have to take extra precautions to keep this coolant piece from leaking. That means replacing the O-ring, hopefully with one from this assorted kit, and RTVing this gasket that goes against the block. As it turns out, the only O-ring of about the right size is too thin and would most likely leak. Hopefully, I can use some petroleum jelly and just reuse the old one without leaks. I don't have high hopes, but this isn't a hard part to get to, and I can always replace it down the line if it ends up leaking. With both surfaces clean, I can now proceed with a liberal application of this black Permatex. While it does vary from type to type, this gasket maker says to assemble parts when wet and finger tighten them, and then wait an hour before tightening them to torque spec. With that done, I can finally move on to reassembling the side cover. Unfortunately, I lost the copper washer that allows this bolt to seal as a coolant drain, but as it's accessible from outside the cover, I can just replace this later. With that assembled, the bike already looks 10 times better without chipping and faded paint. Fortunately, my RevZilla turn signals came way ahead of time and they look great. For now, that's just about the last thing I can do besides putting the carburetors back on and reassembling the air box. While I may try and tackle the carburetors during this time I'm waiting for exhaust, they're really the last thing on my list, and hopefully it comes quickly as I ordered it online. While I'm not putting these on just yet, you can already see the difference they make. This will be a final touch as I reassemble the rear fender. Days later, and my exhaust parts from Jegs have also arrived. While this is a pretty basic package, I'm very excited because this is the last thing keeping me from starting on the exhaust. All that's left is waiting for my gaskets and flanges. Finally, after waiting forever, my Wish.com muffler and its bag of accessories has arrived. While this is a piece of scrap pipe, you can kind of see what I'm trying to achieve with the new exhaust. Finally, my flanges and gaskets have arrived, even though I ordered the wrong gaskets on accident. Having basically all pieces of the puzzle now, I just have to get argon for the welder before I can start fabbing up the exhaust. I do have to say though, this is about the last you'll see exhaust in this video, as I'll make a full-length video on the fabrication of the exhaust. Like I said before, while waiting for parts, I was able to replace the washer that allows this bolt to seal. Speaking honestly, I did want to wait until I had the exhaust finished so that I could reassemble the bike further to finish out this video, but I don't think it's really worth it because it's already kind of long. Considering that I don't upload enough as is, I think I'm just going to end the video here. And while these pieces aren't installed, I'll show them being put back on the bike sometime later. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, I'd appreciate a like, comment, or even subscription to the channel. And stay tuned for the next exciting project. Hopefully you too are staying safe and taking advantage of this beautiful weather. And just as a sneak peek for the next project, it involves water. See you next time.